Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday to you. 1 week to Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining me. Josh is Severe Weather. I'm a meteorologist in Raleigh, and we are tracking weather to come here. A lot of you will be traveling next week. Winter is coming, and we do have the possibility to see more winter weather across the country here next week into next weekend, which may impact some of your travel plans. So I'm going to talk about a big storm moving into the west, another storm across the Northeast and Great Lakes, and then what's to come next week and even beyond, and what may impact the travel plans that you have maybe lined up here. So appreciate you all joining me today. And yes, we have two storms to talk about this week, but next week, already time to start taking a look at what could be a more impactful system, in particular across the Northeast, as we get into Thanksgiving, especially at night and into Black Friday, and maybe even carrying on into the final day of November. So we're going to be tracking that storm for you all here, and more storms to come after that as a much colder pattern takes shape. Right now, two big systems to talk about. One is centered off of the coast to the northwest, and it is feeding an atmospheric river of very heavy rain, continuing to blast northern Cal and southwestern Oregon. And we've had significant power outages already from this system, in particular across western and central portions of Washington. We do have a pretty impressive system as well across the Great Lakes, and heavy rain is moving up the East Coast as we speak. But with this system, we have colder air aloft that will be pushing southward, providing snow into areas that haven't really seen any yet this season. We will see snow across the Appalachians, which could be pretty heavy, but some of you outside of the higher elevations will also pick up some snow here between now and the beginning of the upcoming weekend. And we are going to be high and dry across the southeast with our coldest air mass so far this season, as temperatures continue to tumble. And where I live here in Raleigh, we still have not had a freeze yet. We're going to be close to that tonight, one of the latest ones that I can recall, but it will certainly feel quite a bit colder. So we're going to talk about where these systems go. Here's a look at the incredibly strong cyclone off of the west coast. It is actually drifting around in a loop here, so it will not make landfall in Washington or the northwest, but has already provided some problems here. There's actually another low coming up here that's sending all that moisture here onto the west coast. Very impressive system. One of the stronger ones we've seen this time of the year and overall in the northern Pacific. And as a result, we continue to have multiple issues here with flooding over northern California, heavy snow across the Sierra Nevada and Siskiyou Range, and high winds as well over coastal portions of Oregon and western Washington. So we will continue to have issues here, albeit the worst of the storm for the Northwest is over. The worst of it is going to continue, though, here into tomorrow across northern portions of California, all the way approaching the Bay Area. Now, we're pretty quiet here across the majority of the central U.S. We do have some wind advisories around Lake Michigan to talk about, but we are going to see winter weather spreading south and eastward here into the higher elevations here of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region, as well as a band of some wet snow impacting those of you in parts of Indiana and Southwest Ohio and Eastern Kentucky, as well as all the way into the Smoky Mountain range here. And these colors look menacing, but we just have freeze watches and warnings here for portions of the southeast as well, as tender vegetation should be brought in if it already hasn't. So out west, we still have in the Seattle area a lot of folks without power, as many as 300,000 customers still without power here across portions of Washington state. And we've had some incredible winds as well along the coastline here, as high as 98 miles per hour. So it doesn't take a hurricane to produce this kind of wind, sometimes just a strong non-tropical system this time of the year. Snow is piling up here, as much as 16 inches as of this morning in parts of Oregon, as much as a foot in parts of California. Mount Shasta had 10 inches of snow. Not just 10 inches of snow, but we're talking 10-inch totals for rain in portions of Northern California. And we are just at the beginning of this storm. It's going to be about a 3 to 4 day event. So I expect these totals will go up. As you can see here, 12 to 16 inches expected from Eureka down to Ukiah, a high risk of widespread flash flooding. Wind gusts there will remain in the 50 to 60 mile per hour range, higher in the mountains. And we are going to have heavy mountain snow, another round coming in here tomorrow into Saturday across the Cascades of Washington and the Northern Rockies, which includes the Idaho Mountains, Northeast Oregon, and also western portions of Montana. Significant snow is expected. And the impact of this will be pretty big reaching here. Dangerous flooding, rock slides, and debris flows. So those of you that are in this area are this is not uncommon for you, but this is definitely an impactful system that could cause major issues. Now let's switch gears and take a look at our storm in the east. And this is the NAM model from Weather Bell. And you can see snow pushing southward from the Chicagoland area into southern Indiana this evening, southwest Ohio, and northern and eastern Kentucky. We also see rain changing over to snow across the higher elevations here this afternoon in upstate Pennsylvania and New York. And as the night wears on, we will see this very quickly rotating south and east. So the mountains of North Carolina and Virginia and Tennessee are going to get significant amounts of snow here this afternoon, especially tonight, while snow continues to pile up overnight across portions of Pennsylvania and New York State. We could even see some snow down into Pittsburgh, into Allentown, Bethlehem, even maybe to Lancaster and Lebanon, Pennsylvania. And that's going to pivot southward. So tomorrow morning, there's a possibility we could see snow across parts of central and northern Maryland and southeastern Pennsylvania and getting into the New York City suburbs as well during the morning tomorrow. What is down that approaches the Baltimore and D.C. areas will probably not reach the ground and stick to many surfaces during the daytime hours. In fact, it may change over to rain as it pivots down into portions of the lower Potomac and the Chesapeake Bay area and the Delmarva Peninsula. But I would not be shocked if we saw snow mixed in tomorrow. I just don't think it's enough to close schools or shut down roads at this point. You have to get back into the mountains for those impacts. The good news is that this system is going to gradually wind down in time for Saturday morning, just some snow lingering in the mountains. There will be some snow falling, though, in the elevations of New England and certainly across portions of central Canada. And here's a look at that. You can see the rain coming down pretty hard this morning and afternoon in the New York City area, rain picking up in southern and central New England. Our heaviest rain actually could fall this evening in portions of the Hudson Valley and Connecticut, and that's going to spread into Massachusetts and Rhode Island here later tonight. And then it should be over by tomorrow morning for the most part. In fact, you can see the area of snow kind of backs away to the left here as it tracks with the upper level low. However, with this area of rain moving up into Maine, into the St. Lawrence and Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, we will have higher elevation snows in these areas as well, which could stick around into the first part of our weekend. In fact, NAM model shows kind of a second burst of rain impacting the Maritimes region on Saturday, and a change to some heavier wet snow in New Brunswick and in eastern portions of Maine Saturday into Saturday night. So pretty ugly start to our weekend here. The impacts over the next 3 days are primarily going to be in the mountains of West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, as well as the Poconos and Catskills. But certainly give it some credit here in Indiana and in eastern Kentucky. There are going to be some minor impacts, especially after dark tonight, as roadways begin to freeze up. So that's something to keep in mind across this region. Here's a look at expected snow totals. I know I kind of cut off the Great Lakes region. We may see around an inch or so near Cleveland, around an inch in southwest Ohio, but a few inches near the Kentucky and Virginia border, and several inches on the order of 12 to maybe 20 inches in the ski areas, places like Davis and Snowshoe here in West Virginia, and over 10 to 12 inches in far western parts of Maryland as well. And several inches in southwestern Pennsylvania, maybe just east of Pittsburgh. The potential to see at least 2 inches in Scranton, but the Poconos could see 8 to 12 inches of accumulation. And a lot of this is going to be tonight and into the day tomorrow, gradually tapering off as we head into the beginning of the weekend. So I'm not going to talk much more about that. Obviously, you all know it's coming. We've talked about this for a few days now. I do want to take a look and a glance at what's going to happen here next week. So as this system in the east continues to dig, it's going to be around here into the weekend. It will be replaced with warmer weather across the southern and eastern U.S. You'll see there's a big area of high pressure centered over the eastern Pacific. Milder air is going to spread eastward across the southern U.S. So as cold as it got here today and tomorrow, it's going to warm right back up for a few days by Sunday and Monday. Now, there's another big system here getting ready to move in from the Pacific, and we do have some shots of cold coming down here. So we have to keep an eye on how this cold air gets timed out. But as we head into next weekend, you will see more intrusions of cold coming and a much colder look as we get to the Wednesday before Thanksgiving here, as we have multiple storms to track. There'll be a feature that moves across the northern U.S., a feature that digs across the southern U.S., and we're going to have to keep an eye on this trough here because that may phase together with the southern feature. And as those two come together, there's going to be a moisture source here for a more substantial storm. And you'll see here Friday morning is when that storm could be at its most intense, but it's possible it gets in here Thursday night, Thanksgiving. So much cooler weather spreads eastward here Friday, Saturday, and through the weekend. Some of those college football games here on Saturday will have snow on the ground for them. And this cold pattern continues into the beginning of December. You'll see it kind of recycles here where it's mild in the west and pretty darn cold here across the eastern United States here for the first week of December. Here's a look at our projected temperature anomalies, and you can see Florida's pretty cold through the weekend. Another wave of cold over British Columbia here set to come down. It doesn't really make it all the way down until we get to Tuesday across the southern and central plains. It's mild for a few days here in the eastern United States, but that mild air gets killed off pretty quickly by this big wave of cold. And take a look at how chilly we're looking here for Thanksgiving. Some spots are going to be 15 to 20 degrees below average, centered over West Virginia, and that sets the stage for another potential winter storm. Even more cold across Western Canada, expected to drop down into the central and eastern U.S. as we begin the month of December. So sending those kids back to school here after Thanksgiving, it will not just be a cold turkey, it will be some cold kids out there waiting for their buses here. In fact, look at this. Potentially 30 degrees below average temperatures over Quebec and northern New England as that cold air settles in here for a few days. So it's back and forth from this weekend into the middle of next week, but then it's colder and even colder than that as we head into the month of December. Here's a look at low temperatures in the morning tomorrow. We'll have freezing temperatures all the way down to near Charlotte and Raleigh, low to mid 20s in the mountains here where folks are still dealing with the effects of Hurricane Helene. So those folks will be cold. Mid 40s down to Orlando, near 40 in Tallahassee, upper 30s in eastern parts of Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and even colder tomorrow night for some of us here in central and southern Florida. We'll get down to about 50 here on the east coast of Florida, 40s on the west coast, and 30s towards Ocala and Gainesville. Excuse me, got a scratch there. As we get to the weekend, though, it does warm back up gradually. Still chilly Sunday morning, but take a look at Monday. We're starting to wipe out that cold, and by Tuesday, pretty mild here on the Gulf Coast. It will not last. Here comes the next wave, and as we head to Wednesday morning, much chillier again, and Thanksgiving morning, I expect this cold will continue to spread eastward. Let's take a look at potential storm tracks. Here's our big East Coast system. Then we get a break this weekend. Here comes a weaker system, but some cold air will follow it. It's going to sneak on down into the plains early next week behind our front. So a little bit damp here on Tuesday in the eastern U.S., some snow in the colder spots to the north. And then we see chillier air move in. And then here's a look at Thanksgiving Day, and it looks wet from Texas into the mid-Atlantic states. But with that cold air hanging on, areas just north and west of the East Coast will be looking at wintry precipitation. Now, how much and when right now is still a little bit uncertain, but I do think by Thursday night, we are talking about maybe a substantial snowfall again across interior portions of the Northeast, possibly even down to New York City, depending on where this low tracks. And it'll get really cold, as I had mentioned. Black Friday is going to be frigid in the morning, even colder on Saturday, and maybe another system to track for Sunday. So folks that are trying to do travel on Wednesday before Thanksgiving are going to run into some delays due to the rain and maybe some snow in parts of the central United States. But those heading back on Sunday could be dealing with bigger issues with lake effect, with cold, and with strong winds affecting some of us here in the eastern United States, and more unsettled weather expected here beyond that into the first week of December. I don't want to just show you one model. I don't have the new European just yet, but I do have the Canadian, and it'll give you another perspective of what's to come here. So here's a look at next Tuesday. Wet weather briefly, then turning chillier. We'll have some lake effect bands here on Wednesday. Here's our next storm moving out of Utah and Colorado on Wednesday. And here's a look at Thanksgiving Day. It looks wet with some snow mixed in parts of Kansas, Missouri, all the way into central Indiana. But as that cold air bleeds into the Northeast and this low begins to make some progress northward, we are likely looking at snow across parts of Ohio, Western Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey by morning on Friday, and maybe more substantial snow Friday morning and afternoon, Black Friday, over southern New England and the New York City area. So we're going to track this right now. Snow potential, snowstorm possible, but a bit too soon to get too specific on any kind of totals. Here's the look of some potential problems here for Monday. And as we head to Tuesday, it's not terribly bad. Wednesday either, but as we head to Thursday, you'll see Thanksgiving Day, a better chance for snow, Nebraska and Iowa. And I think as we head towards the following day, we're going to see the area of the greatest concern potentially going to be in here. That would be day 8. So we're not quite there yet from this forecast cycle, but we're going to get there pretty soon. Here's some GFS snow totals. You can see a few inches coming out of here on Tuesday and Wednesday. Kansas City could see a few inches. Sioux Falls, and especially farther up towards Aberdeen, South Dakota, Twin Cities. Take a look at some of the snow spreading along I-70, though. It may go south of Chicago, but we'll have to track it. We also could see heavy snow around portions of Lake Superior here. And then here's the next wave. Take a look at the weekend here. A lot of snow around the Great Lakes, and maybe some more snowfall across parts of the Ohio Valley and the Appalachians. You see what's going on in the Northeast. I'll zoom in for you all to see that. So Thanksgiving morning, probably not a big deal, but you can see the GFS starts getting crazy. Now, this is not what the European showed yesterday. The European had a big storm in here. It's backed off since then, but all the models are showing something. So Thanksgiving Day, potentially up to 8 inches around Williamsport, 3 to 6 inches around Allentown State College, and lighter amounts when we get closer to the coast. And as we get to Thursday night into Friday, these totals continue to climb across interior portions of the Northeast, as well as the Maritimes into Nova Scotia here, potentially some substantial snow. And then we get a brief break, and then here comes the next wave Sunday into Monday. More snow possible here. I don't know about 4 inches in Dover and Milford, Delaware, or on eastern Long Island, but definitely some snow could be possible at that point. Here's a Canadian model, and it's slower on our system, but it does have it coming down here by Friday morning. A few inches around Indiana, Punxsutawney, Altoona, State College, over towards Sunbury and those areas. Maybe Harrisburg as well Friday morning, and then take a look at Friday afternoon, Friday night. You can see here numbers are lower, but it is farther south. New York City, North Jersey, Allentown, maybe Philly, and back into central Maryland all have the potential to see some accumulation depending on where this storm goes and how much it strengthens. So we do see that change in the models, but we see that potential here. And finally, the European model. You can see here a little bit sooner with the snow here before Thursday morning, a few inches in PA, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. Here's kind of a second push. The European pushes it a little farther northward here into New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, and upstate New York, and most of that would come on Friday. And then we see the next wave coming in here. Lake effect could be pretty substantial Sunday into Monday, but right now the European avoids the majority of the Northeast. Interestingly, it's got something moving through the Carolinas here, and don't get too excited about this yet, but it's showing the cold there, so we've got something streaking down here. Time frame on this would be Sunday, which is a big travel day for a lot of you. So keep tuned here. This will probably change a million times, but there's certainly something to watch at this point. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm off the grid until Monday. I'll be back then. I've got to travel. I've got a cousin getting married in College Station, Texas, where I've never been, believe it or not. But I appreciate everybody. And as always, would love if you could invite your friends to come take a look at the channel here if they want any weather updates. I'll try to update you all here Friday into the weekend, but I am going to be traveling. And I'll catch up with you all again here next week. As always, I want to give all the honor and glory to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who I am eternally grateful to for what God has promised. And having that peace and that hope and that joy in my life is something I want to encourage everyone else to have. Paul tells the church of Colossians 3:15 through 17, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. Let the message of Christ dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms, hymns, and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. And whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And I'm somebody who believes in the power of prayer and talking to God. Prayers get answered all the time, not on my schedule, but on God's schedule. But Paul reminds us here that we need to be thankful. Every day is a blessing from above. Nothing is ever guaranteed. We're all sinners. We've all fallen short of the glory of God, but we're still here. And if we choose to follow Jesus, we will be here forever, eternally. And for that, I am thankful. Paul is thankful, and we are in a season of thanks here with Thanksgiving coming up. So my encouragement for you is to count every blessing and to be appreciative and thankful of what you have, and to treat others with gratitude as well. I always want to see the best in others, and I truly believe if we're compassionate and kind to each other, that God truly does reward us on his time. So if you have any prayer requests, I will spend some time praying for you while I'm traveling. And if not, I'll catch up with you all again here on Monday afternoon. Have a blessed day. See ya.